More Heart Than Talent Radio.
Jeffery Combs, president and founder, Golden Mastermind Seminars Incorporated, founder of Sobriety Consciousness Group. Welcome to the last Tuesday of May, More Heart Than Talent Mindset Facebook Live. So if you're just coming on the live, welcome. I have great content for you today. Some of this content will be used in videos forthcoming in the Sobriety Consciousness sales funnel will be coming up here in the next few weeks. So if you're a first-time viewer, welcome aboard. I've been hosting this Facebook Live and combination mindset call since 1998. Originally, this was a 10:30 Eastern call, and a little over a year ago, we moved this to a Facebook Live. So I see some really good clients and friends are joining me here. So the topic for today's call is called The Truth About Sobriety. Now, once again, this is the truth, meaning this is my own objective perspective about what it means to be sober, or what it means to stay sober, or what it means to me to be and stay in recovery. Now, I'm going to use some synonyms for it in today's live to give you some insight. So words like awareness, understanding, knowing, trust, consciousness. These are some of the words that will assist you to elevate your feelings above anxiety, fear, and doubt. And if you're a first-time viewer on this Facebook Live and have not experienced a free 20-minute coaching call, you may access this by sending me a message in Instagram, Facebook groups, LinkedIn, or any multitude of situations in social media where you can reach me and send me a message. I handle all of my messages personally, and I will respond to you very quickly. Now, there's some really key points in here today in today's Facebook Live that'll give you some really good insight and what it means to be and stay. So in my world, sobriety, recovery, and consciousness are all intermingled. So in consciousness is a no state, a very relaxed state in a relaxed body where you're not in your analytical, egoic mind, thinking, processing, reacting, and analyzing, trying to control outcomes that haven't happened. You're not in an anxious, worried state about future events. You're here, you're you, you're free, I'm me, and it's now. Now, in that state, of course you goal set. Of course you plan for the future. But planning for the future is different than worrying about the future. There's the distinction that many people have challenges distinguishing between worrying and planning. So there's a difference between setting a goal and worrying about paying your bills. There's a difference between creating the money than worrying about the money. As you begin to create is innovation, it's creativity, it's being able to channel your inner brilliance, it's the action, it's the consistent emotional state that allows you to be and stay in consciousness. Now, in any kind of recovery process, sobriety is a term that's used. It means it's a be and stay state. It's I'm being and staying sober. So that would be the context of what consciousness would be in for today's communication. I have 8 key points here. Here are the key points in today's Facebook Live. Now, this is the sheet that many of you will have received from the email that goes out every Monday about the call that happens the next day. So here are the points that I put together for the call. The reasons you'll relapse and stay in struggle. That would be point number 1. The stories you tell yourself to qualify and or justify your relapse. The advice non-sober people give you, that will mean the status quo. A lot of people in the status quo will give you input and advice on how to be a business owner, how to run a business, what you should do with your life, and some of that breaks down to control. Then there's how to overcome the people around you in sobriety. What do I do different to be and stay in sobriety, recovery, and consciousness? Creating a system to be and stay. Now this term is synonymous, a system to be and stay. So you can input to be and stay aware, to be and stay sober, to be and stay in recovery, to be and stay in production, to be and stay in the flow. This is how sobriety, life, business, they all intertwine into being one with. And the more you can be in this one with state, the less frequently that you will relapse. Now, in my newest group, Sobriety Consciousness, there's somewhat of a misconception that that's a group for alcoholism or that's a group for drug addiction. All right, so in context, I do cover drug addiction, alcohol addiction, and all of these situations. I'm a recovering drug addict, alcoholic, sex addict. So I've been through the gamut of addictions. I've also chronically debted at times. I've been a chronic avoider, pathological liar. These aren't like 10 different addictions. These are all the same. This is all the same situations that get created by low self-esteem, not feeling good enough. And it really breaks down to this, the events that shape our feelings. Now, the more you understand cause and you're able to isolate the events, then you can separate your emotions from the events so that you're not the mind-body connection to an event. That allows you to, as you separate yourself, this allows you to migrate over here so you can be right here. That would be the now state. So you're not looking over there. That would be your past. And you're not over there in the future worried about what hasn't happened. So that's regret and that's anxiety, the worry. But when you uncross those two, here I am. I'm in a flow state. This is gravity. I mean, this doesn't require, this is non-shape and form. This gravity that you're in, it's a flexibility state where you can navigate the situations and you're able to respond versus react. When you react to stimulus, that means your body is relapsing to unresolved events that you haven't addressed. You either repressed them, suppressed them, don't understand them, and keep perpetuating the same centrifugal, and this is a force. It's a centrifugal force. It's like reverse osmosis. It's going backwards like this, backwards going nowhere. And when you let go of the cause that creates the effect, now you're here. That's where gravity is. I mean, gravity, it doesn't hit the pavement. There's gravity doesn't relapse because it's a state of just being and staying. And that state is also called power. Now, not physical power, not linear power, but emotional power. And that power is called consciousness. Now, in that state of consciousness, you seldom will relapse. So and then the point, being clear on the cause of your addiction. Then number 8, where to seek assistance for your addiction. So I'm just going to go through these. I'm going to do 1, 2, and 3. The reasons you relapse and struggle. Well, if struggle is a way of life and struggle is all you know, then struggling becomes noble. Struggling becomes an identity. It's who I am and what I do. And then your communication style will foster that by saying words like hard. And many people will say, yeah, but. So the contradiction is, this is a really good business opportunity, but I haven't succeeded in it. I see a lot of other people succeeding, but I'm not. So that means that in struggle, you'll stay behind the glass. So right in front of me is a beautiful picture glass window looking out on a street where there's no traffic. I live in a great neighborhood. No one's struggling out there. So the struggle, the internal struggle, means there's a contradiction. That means that there's a mixed message that's going on in me emotionally. So that means there's a push and a pull. So it's like this and this. So there's resistance. So struggle is resistance. Struggle is chaos. It's drama. It's an overwhelmed state. It's an unorganized, undisciplined state where I tend to get behind on situations. I'm always late. Everything's difficult. It's hard. This always happens to me. I get right to the finish line and something happens. I'm always waiting for the other shoe to drop. This is the communication style that many people communicate to be and stay in anxiety, fear, and doubt. So that becomes the struggle. So then the communication style is how do I? Letting go is not a how do I state. Letting go is an I am state. It's I am letting go. I am separating my feelings from the events. And then in the quantum physics of that, the body doesn't run the brain, meaning if I ask someone a question, in an event, they go, and they cross their leg without even knowing it. They cross their leg, meaning that body is running that brain. But in a relaxed body, they'll go, Jeff, what I'm receiving today is, so that's the state of consciousness that you would seek to be and stay in. There would be no yeah, but to it. There's a level of commitment. There's a deeper breathing cycle. There's an awareness of why you do what you do. And you don't continue to go back into the very bar that you drank to get drunk in. You don't require to test yourself. Now, what many people do is they stay in the same state of environment that they became emotionally addicted to, and they continue to repeat the behavior, but yet they seek a level of emotional sobriety. So there's not a detachment. So in covering this content today, there's also a place where you learn to detach. Now, detachment gets a bad rap. Detachment has more than one meaning. Detachment doesn't mean you don't care. Detach means you're able to separate yourself from events, people, and situations that led you to your emotionally addicted state, so you don't recreate a behavior. And this means that you have to objectively look at relationships, family, jobs, circumstances, environment, and the whole picture of it. And it's not difficult. It can be new, and it's not hard. It's your responsibility. And as you move into that state of awareness and that openness, now you're creating space in the universe to allow. Now, when you're shut down and locked up, you have very little allow space. The space that you stay in is a space for familiar. So there's no allow space. You're not allowing for new relationships, new business ventures, new business partners, new soulmates to show up. Your unconscious expectation will attract your reality, people and situations to fulfill the same feelings that you perpetuate over and over. Now, here are some of the reasons that you will relapse. You will tend to relapse emotionally because you're not committed to changing. Your communication style speaks a communication of difficulty. You continue to foster and edify the difficulty that the change, the business, life, new career, new job, detachment, separating yourself, how difficult it is to go to a meeting, an event, how difficult it is to attract a sponsor, a mentor. And in that degree of difficulty, you continue to speak the same language that created your addiction. And then another situation, another reason that many people relapse is they get cocky. It's called the pink cloud method. They start to romance sobriety and they stop doing what brought them to the dance. They don't go to the meetings. They don't read the books. They don't connect with the same people. They get cocky. I've seen people, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to a nightclub tonight and I'm going to go in there and dance. I'm not going to drink. I'm just going to go in there and dance. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this picnic today where there's a lot of food, and I'm just going to prove that I can white knuckle it and not eat the greasy chicken, the potato salad, the coleslaw. And this is what many people do, is they get cocky. They forget where they come from. In my world, it's called a pink cloud. People get into a pink cloud and then they relapse because they put themselves back in the environment that brought them to dance, they want to prove something to themselves, because they have high self-confidence while having low self-esteem. Confidence requires competition. So what they do is they compete with their ego, and then their ego kicks their ass. And unfortunately, that's what many people do. Now, when you let go of that ego, now ego does not mean arrogant or eccentric. Ego in our world is your lower self that keeps you re-competing with yourself over and over so you can stay in your own counterforce. It's a force counterforce situation, meaning if you can't find someone to reject you, then you'll reject yourself. And when you relapse, now you feel horrible. And someone in recovery's worst nightmare is a relapse, because oftentimes that relapse is 10 times more difficult to get back to where you were than it was before, because your addiction is a progressive situation. So it stays stored in your memory bank. And so when you relapse, it's quantified. And as you begin to have a better understanding that you don't fear a relapse, you don't relapse. You don't worry about relapsing. And so many people say, all I have to worry about is staying sober. No, you don't. Worry is not part of sobriety. When you're worried about sobriety, you're relapsing before you get there. All I have to do is worry about success. Success does not acknowledge worry. Success acknowledges results. Success acknowledges the results and the action that gets created. Success doesn't acknowledge procrastination and avoidance because it doesn't see it. I mean, results come from a constant state of being in a flow, of momentum, movement. But when you're static, standing behind, wishing, hoping, I hope I'm successful, I hope I'm sober, I'd like to be recovered, I'd like to let go of this. Well, it doesn't foster it that way. The more you understand cause and effect and why you do what you do, then you can move into higher states of awareness. And here's a couple other situations that cause relapses. You try and figure it out. You can't wrap your brain around it. It doesn't make sense. Consciousness is not about sense. Consciousness is awareness. See if as you move into higher levels of consciousness, you say less. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Well, recovery isn't making sense. Recovery is consciousness. Consciousness is not sense. Consciousness is awareness, understanding, knowing, trusting, and changing your belief, where you live and stay in a state of certainty. That's what a belief is, a sense of certainties. Now, the stories you tell yourself to justify your relapse. Now, this means you step out of sensitivity, you step out of being defensive, and you let go of explaining yourself so much as part of the story. Now, what the addicted brain receives when someone gives you insight is they turn it into criticism. And then you feel wounded, you feel defensive, you feel sensitive. Now, there's a couple different perspectives in sensitivity and defensiveness. I am recovering from being sensitive and defensive, and my sensitivity was anchored in anger. Many other people's sensitivity is anchored in being a victim. Now, there's two perspectives, and there's degrees of separation in both of them, but I know as in being sensitive, I was very sensitive, and I would want to take you on or take on the world or prove it to you. Other people's sensitivity, oftentimes they want to explain, validate, justify themselves and say, yeah, but, and go into this story, and this is the story. And when you let go of your story, do your best to be your best, to receive insight, content. It's not constructive criticism. That's how your brain sees a lot of it. Criticism isn't constructive. Criticism is criticism. There's a difference when someone offers you insight, wisdom, suggestions. So when I'm coaching my clients, I suggest. I don't tell them what they have to do. I'll give them options so that they can create their own decisiveness, their own decisions, so that they can receive the wisdom and then apply it. Another reason that many people will relapse is they're not committed. They're interested, but they're not committed. I can't see myself not drinking. I can't let go of this relationship because that's my relative. I can't let go of this relationship. I grew up with this person. I can't do this. I can't. And when you say, I am willing to understand this relationship, when that's, once again, your communication style will oftentimes dictate the outcome that you create. The advice that you receive by someone who's not in alignment with you. Well, you've heard the term naysayer, and you want to be able to seek content and confirmation from people who are in alignment with you, not people who will criticize you. Now, as you begin to move into higher levels of consciousness, there are occasionally people who will criticize you, but not everyone will. But if you're worried about what people will say, once you enter into the communication of worry, now you're in your analytical egoic mind. When you remove worry from your equation, and you're not anxious about the future, and you're not regretting the past, now you can be right here. Because what you worry about expands. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and then you hope it doesn't. Well, we tend to attract our reality the very situation we seek to avoid. Oh, I'm so worried about relapsing. And this is what many people do. They start to experience success, and they become so overwhelmed about how they're going to control it tomorrow that they create a neurological network of neurons that wire and fire, formed on familiar feelings that are not resolved, unresolved issues. So they experience a little success, sobriety, consciousness, and how do I control it? Well, gravity doesn't have control. It has no shape or form. You can't grab the ball that isn't in front of you. That's what letting go is. So when you're controlling, it means you're trying to control an outcome, whether it be a person, an event, a shape, or a form out here in the future. As you begin to let go of control, then you're not controlling the control that leads to being out of control. And in that state, as you let go, that elevates your energy, it elevates your consciousness, so you can attract your reality. Quality, like-minded, success, recovery, and sobriety seekers that you can collaborate with. As you move into sobriety and you're actually really anchored in it, you won't let other people affect you. And other people who used to affect you won't have the same effect on you because your energy doesn't give them the space to violate you. And now this is sometimes challenging to wrap your brain around. It's challenging. It's not challenging. It's fact. And when you start to accept when you start to accept what is required of you, you will stop wrestling with your addictions. When the pleasure isn't worth the pain is a common statement in sobriety, recovery, and consciousness. But that's the rock bottom method, which is a very overrated way to be able to let go. As you move into a more elevated state of awareness, understanding, trust, emotional know-how, not the technical know-how, but the emotional know-how. It means that you're in the grasp of it, you're in the inner game of it, you're in the energy of it. And you move out of making sense. Because once again, this isn't making sense. This isn't about making sense. This is about your life. Your life is not about sense. Your life is not about money. Your life is about joy and peace. Your life is about being able to experience pleasure. And pleasure does not come from anxiety, fear, and doubt. Pleasure comes from consciousness. Pleasure comes from joy, bliss, experiences, love, and relationships, and being able to be relatable. Being rejected, abandoned, neglected, and traumatized. Well, if you have an emotional code in your brain and body that you haven't let go of, you'll attract your reality, these people, and then you can justify your relapses. This is not difficult. This is new. This is not hard. This is a process. And this process, it does not rely on the payoff you used to get in being an addict. One of the most challenging aspects for most addicts is to understand that they create a payoff. And if you can actually let go of being angry about the payoff that you get, payoff, there's no payoff in this. Why would I want to relapse? Why would I want to do that? Well, you would want to do it to fulfill your feelings, to justify that you're not good enough. I mean, it becomes a simple equation once you're able to understand. When you understand that the pleasure isn't worth the pain, then that's what the payoff is. There is no payoff because you're not seeking a payoff. You're not seeking a reward based on anxiety, fear, and doubt. You don't require a reward because you're good enough. And self-esteem doesn't require outside love to experience love because self-esteem is love. And self-esteem does not require rewards and recognition because self-esteem is not rewardable. Self-esteem is itself. It's its own fulfilling energy. It doesn't deplete itself. Self-confidence has to have a reward because it constantly exhausts itself and has to have a new reward because it thrives on that competition. Self-esteem doesn't compete with anyone, let alone itself. And in self-esteem, you can't be humiliated because you're humble. A truly humble person does not experience rejection. And rejection is only your perception of someone violating you in today's world to fulfill your feelings. And someone can be really pissed off at you. There was a great post in Sobriety Consciousness by Levente. Said someone knocked on his window and spit on his window and wanted him to get out of the car because the guy wanted to get in conflict with him. And Levente wrote this great post over the weekend and really stepped into some rigorous honesty. I mean, he was able to neutralize that and drive off. Now, a year ago, you get out of the car and then there would have been conflict. There would have been aggression and all these other things, the competition and self-confidence when you have to prove something to someone. What to do different in recovery? Well, in recovery, you learn to separate your feelings from events. You separate yourself from people who you used to hang out with that would lead you to addictive states. You learn to catch yourself more frequently in an emotional relapse. You have a longer breath cycle. You don't explain, validate, and justify as frequently. You don't feel as sensitive and defensive. You're able to receive wisdom, insight. You learn to live a lot more in your intuitive state. You access your extrasensory perception, and you're able to be and stay there. Now, all of us can be this person. This isn't a do state. So the millions of dollars you seek to create, that's possible. It's going to be a lot, and millions of dollars, if you're an addict, doesn't mean much because it means you'll just consume more. But when you're really relaxed in your body, when you're able to let go, your consumptive behaviors aren't triggered by your low self-esteem, meaning you don't have to buy something to prove something. You don't have to get someone to do this. You don't have to achieve this to prove you're good enough. And so it means that a lot of what will happen will be a lot more organic. It means that your achievements will be more organic, and you'll get recognized without expecting to get recognized. And then you don't even require the recognition. You may not even You may not even show up for the award because the award doesn't have the same meaning, because consciousness does not require the reward. When you're good enough and love yourself, you don't require rewards and recognition. When you've earned them, that's understandable. You deserve them, but it means that your ego is not driven by a reward. And you don't have an ego. It means you're so humble that you can achieve something and just be grateful for it. And so then, and in this next state of sobriety, as I'm wrapping up the content here, there's acceptance. I'm not where I should be. Well, look at your feet. I mean, where else could you have been? I mean, you're right where you are because you earned the distinction of being there. You either earned it by being an addict, or you're earning it, or you're there now because you're in recovery. And that's what acceptance is. You're beginning to accept the transgressions from the past. You forgive yourself and others who violated you. You forgive yourself for all the time you've wasted being an addict. You don't spend any more time thinking about what you should have done, what you could have done, and life could have been differently. You're able to look at the events that shaped your emotional state. You're able to realize that you're responsible for what you created. There's other situations that happen to you that are not your fault. You accept those facts and you forgive those people who traumatized you, violated you. And incidentally, by forgiving them, that doesn't mean you have to love them. It means by forgiving them, you're separating your feelings and you're not holding them responsible for your feelings. And that's really how you address anger. When you start to be less angry, you can look at the whole package, the whole situation, and say, I'm responsible for this. I own this, and I'm not going to let you own my feelings. And I forgive you for that. And I accept that happened. This is who I am, and I'm moving on. So Jeffery Combs, president and founder, Golden Mastermind Seminars Incorporated. If you have not joined the Sobriety Consciousness page, feel free to request an invitation, or you can also suggest it to people in your circle of influence. We'll accept everyone who wants to be in that group. We're going to really take that group to the next level in the next few months. So thank you very much for being on today's Facebook Live. I'll be here next Tuesday, the first Facebook Live in June 2019, next week. And I'll be in New Jersey. One more thing, I'll be in New Jersey. That will be June 8th in Saddlebrook. I want to thank Monica Hendricks for promoting that event, Gina Ricci and Roger Hughes. So have a great afternoon, everyone. Good day.